Hey guys, this is Mike from Deepwood Force of Will, coming at you guys with something really special today. We have an interview with Mr. Aaron Miles, Esquire, Junior, Senior, the fourth, the fifth, backslash, and fourth. Whatever. Aaron Miles, who won Worlds this year. It's a pretty big
That's
accomplishment.
me.
I know a celebrity. It's crazy. I know somebody who's best in the world at something.
That's what all my friends have been saying. They're
I
like,
know,
wow,
right?
it's the best in the world. I'm like, okay. You said it, not me.
So we're just going to be going over, the experience of the whole thing, how he feels the meta is going to shape up, and we'll go into the deck that he brought, because he brought something that a lot of the Outer World players were playing, and it's gross, and it looks awesome.
I actually have to pull up my own deck list.
Yeah.
I remember that it was a lot of four ofs, but
Tons of foros, man. Alright, so I guess we'll start off with the most general question. Man, how is Japan? Because I've heard so many good things.
Japan is amazing. First off, like everything is dirt cheap in Japan. Like I know their conversion rate is low, but like here you go to like a Wawa or something, or like a 7-Eleven, and like it's like a bottle of water, like a normal bottle of water is like $1 something, right?
You had the water bottle ready for that.
Yeah.
I'm super impressed.
It was 74 yen for a 2 liter of just great water. Their Gatorade was like $1 for 2 liters, and like all the food is amazing. I told myself going in, I was like, I'm not gonna say no to any food. And when I go to get something to drink, I'm going for the least amount of English on the bottle. Which led to a couple of bad decisions. There was like this weird grape citrus soda that was pretty weird, but they have like lemon Coke, apple Fanta. It's like a
They
whole
have, like,
other
the-
universe.
They got like
Yeah,
all the fruit drinks, yeah.
yeah. And I was like, I just want to drink some fruity ass Japanese ass juice and just like have a good time. The
So you
best
got
food I
juiced?
had, yeah, I got juiced. It was great. But like the best food I had was in Akihabara. It was like this street vendor, and it was like this octopus and other fish cocktail in like inside of like a deep fried ball. And it was like $8, or no, it was like $5 for like 8 of them. And in America, this would have been like $13, or I'd get like 2 of them. And it was amazing. It was delicious. Like everything there is crazy. I had to take the train everywhere. I'm not used to that. I live out in like the middle of fucking nowhere. Like the closest train station's like 40 minutes from me. So taking the metro everywhere was an experience.
Yeah, but I've heard the metro system's really good in Japan, though.
Yeah, it was actually pretty easy for us to figure out too. There was a decent amount. I mean, by a decent amount of English, I mean the city names were translated, and we were like, that's all we really need. Me and Ryan got lost on our way to Chiba though. We like went down to somewhere, and then it turns out that the train that we needed to go wasn't at that station, so we like had to head back to our station, get our tickets exchanged, hop on another train, and then we were set from there. But it wasn't too bad.
I'm sure. How was it going in with no subtitles, you anime dork?
Oh god, and there were a few times where it was just like there aren't any subtitles. Like on my flight there, I was alerting all my friends. I'm like, yeah, so I forgot I don't speak Japanese, which would happen a lot. Like when I would first leave the house and like go to a restaurant, and if the waiter didn't speak any English, I'd be like, shit, none of us speak Japanese. We're just gonna point and hope for the best. At
Did it
one
work?
point, it worked for the most part. The only problem we really ran into was Nick ordered food like at the end, and he was trying to get it to go, and he's just like to go box, and they had no idea what we were talking about. So he just puts his pizza on top of a couple of napkins and just kind of like carries it like this as we're walking
Oh
through
my
a convenience
God.
store later.
Oh. So, I'm assuming a like 10 out of 10 good time though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would love to go back.
And you are
And
gonna go back if they.
I've got that paid invite, so
Hey, you
let's
know
see.
what? Man.
I've heard whispers of Rome or Vegas, but I'm assuming Rome then since Masters is in Vegas. But if it's
Yeah.
in Japan again, I'm not gonna complain.
Do you also have like an invite to Masters, or is that just still a totally up in the air
I'm
thing?
gonna email them about that
It's
because
like,
I don't, but I want to be like, hey guys,
guess
world
who I
champion,
am?
would love to come to your Masters tournament and get that car.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool, honestly.
Yeah,
All right, so obviously it seems like Japan was a absolute joy.
yeah,
Um,
oh, definitely.
so I guess we'll start talking about the actual experience of going there. What was it like just entering this room full of like the best players in the world?
All right, so the day before, I think like most people arrive to the player hotel like 2 or 3 hours before check-in. So we're all just kind of like standing outside talking. I ran into most people from Team USA, except for like the tavern members, because Dan Musser had been staying at that hotel before it was the player hotel. So he was like, "Hey, can I just switch my room?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." So he was already inside, like
That's
testing with
cool.
his team. Um, so like they line us up for check-in, like we all get our lanyard for the weekend and our cards, and we're like, I can't wait to go like unproxy these decks. And then we had the player party, which is where I started to get a little intimidated. Um, because I mean, like I know the names, I know the faces. I'm like, these are my competitors, these are my peers, these are people that are probably going to stomp me into the ground if I have to play them in Swiss. Uh, but it was a pretty relaxed event, and then like the player like the player meeting for day one starts up, and it turns out that it's done instead of done by last name for seating, it's done by first name. So I'm
So
always at the top
oh
of the
my god.
yeah, every time that like the pairings are up, I just get up on my tiptoes and I'm like, all right, yeah, cool. But yeah, it was pretty scary. I had to play against a lot of big name players. I think I don't remember the name of my round one opponent. Everybody after that was like a big name player,
Ooh.
which was scary. But I handled it pretty well apparently.
Who's the scariest one you had to face in Swiss?
That was probably Eduardo Valenti.
Oh.
He's an Italian player. Our game, it was a Charlotte Mirror. Game one goes 55 minutes, in which I successfully resolve 13 captain hooks.
Uh,
He played 12 stones. I think he ended the game on 5 or 6. And then, so I win game one, and I'm like, okay, thank God. He's got like 6 minutes. There's no way I don't lose. And then he flips Wukong. And I'm like, okay, that'll kill me in 6 minutes. Um,
oh my god.
but I figured he didn't side in Sha Wujing and Ba Huji, so I'm like, all right, he's got to flip for 4 mana, and like he taps for his fourth stone, and I'm like, God, I lose in like 2 more turns, but then I captain hook him back to 2 stones, and he just scoops.
Okay.
I was like, holy shit.
He's siding into Wukong?
Yeah, a lot of the Italians were siding into Sun Wukong, which is fair because I don't know how the fuck I was gonna deal with a Wukong. I sided Feetsing because I needed to be able to pump Christie to kill 0.
Right.
Because I was like, I have no way to deal with J rulers, but like if Wukong's gonna be an 18/18, I didn't side into Feetsing for game 2. I thought it was staying a Charlotte Mirror. So if game 2 had played out, I'm pretty sure I would have lost game 2. And then I would have had to go into, I would have been fine game 3 because I played 3 of the thing that lets me block flyers, and I probably would have
Right.
just gone into Feetsing.
Did a lot of play? It's like it seems like like all the players are playing like Charlotte, and a lot of people are playing Feetsing. If Sun Wukong was so scary, how come nobody was really like maining him?
Nobody was maining him because he loses to Mikage and he loses to 0. Like,
Right.
obviously 0 just takes away his flying, and then he's just a giant beatstick that
Yeah.
you chump with like an elf. And Mikage, as long as you can get to later in the game, which you probably will, because I don't think many people would be flipping Wukong for 1. And even if they did, that's probably not happening till turn 4 anyway.
Yeah.
So one guy's 3 mana and then 3 mana on the next turn. But at that point, like if they've got enough stones, they can just flip Mikage, block it, flip Mikage, block it, flip Mikage, block it.
Because
And
they're
like sure,
perishable, and you can't break.
yeah,
You can't
and like
break
sure,
that.
yeah, sure they're like losing out on like the 3 stones every turn to flip Mikage, but if they're on 5 mana, so like it's 3 to flip and then 2 open mana, I mean Mikage doesn't really play any cards that cost more than 2 mana.
Yeah, because he's like a fairly aggressive but control-oriented ruler.
Yeah,
It's
and like I mean, if they just like flip him up, block, and then like they use the 2 stones to add enough blood counters on him, like eventually they're just gonna shrink your Wukong down to nothing when they block it, and then your Wukong's dead forever, and then they're still Mikage.
Yep.
Because Wukong, when he got spoiled, I was like, all right, this is the ruler I'm playing. This guy looks broken. There's nothing that's gonna handle like an 18/18 beat stick. But then we got more spoilers, and I was like, all right, I guess he's not the ruler.
Yeah. I guess in a vacuum, in like the L0, L1 vacuum, Sun Wukong's pretty like a pretty solid card.
Yeah.
Do you see him being viable in New Frontiers, or do you think he's just way too slow?
I think he's too slow. Like his whole gimmick is that like he's giant, and he flies. But there are a couple things that are better than giant flyers. Gil
Yeah.
Lapis, for example, comes to
Right.
mind. He doesn't fly, but he takes a Gwyber or a Captain Hook out of your deck.
And the Captain
like,
Hook then resolves, and
Yeah, like if
And
I
it's a
take
bad
Captain
time,
Hook out of
right?
your deck like turn 4, like you lose the game. Okay.
right, you lose the game. You lose the game.
Yeah.
All right. So, going into your top 8 matches, how were those?
Okay, so I'm on Facebook the night before, and everybody's like, "Oh, Zach Tufford and Eponk in the finals. Like that's what it's gonna be." And me
So
and
you felt
Zach
kind of gypped. Yeah.
a little gypped. I was like, "All right, I get it, guys. I'm not really a favorite here because we had done an Outer World poll before the event, and it was like, which Outer World members do you think are gonna go the farthest? Number 1 was Nick Blandon, and then the bottom 2 were me and Nick Heel, which were the 3 that top 8'd. So we were like,
Right.
shows what you guys know. I mean, if Outer World wanted to have a bet on who was going to do the best of worlds, none of us ended up doing it. But I would not have bet on myself. I would have bet on Nick
Really?
Blandon.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
definitely.
Yeah,
Because if he's got,
who was the
what
one
was
who
that?
like originated the deck idea for like the Charlotte control?
it was mostly me, Ryan, and Nick Blandon, we were throwing the Feetsing mirrors at the wall, and then we were like, all right, well, it turns out like turn 4, 5, and 6, we're just playing like one card. And we're not really generating elf tokens. There's very few instances where like we flip Feetsing and run away with the game with that. So for the most part, these 1/1 tokens just aren't doing anything for us.
Right.
So we're like, okay, what if we try Charlotte? And like we draw the 5 cards. And it turns out Charlotte never loses to Feetsing. Because there are so few instances where you actually get a flip and run away with the game, my J ruler is just better than yours. Because the cards in my deck are the same as yours, our rulers don't really matter, but then I have 5 more cards than you do.
Exactly. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, we thought it was going to come down to more like, oh, your ruler really depends. Like, your ruler's going to win you the game, and it turns out the cards in the set were actually just good enough, which made Charlotte the best ruler.
Absolutely, because with Regalia shooting out of the game, it's like rulers just become like the big thing now.
Yeah.
And, well, the ruler side, not the J ruler side. The J ruler side's like a supplement, and then all the cards in your deck have to like... It's kind of the same way that Reflect was, from what I remember, because like Reflect was good because the cards in your deck were good.
Yeah. Like, Reflect single-handedly would not win you a game.
Right.
She would just make it a lot easier because you could search your deck for all your good cards.
Exactly. And filter into all your good cards.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. Nothing's dead.
Yeah. Everything lives forever.
And then the final... I didn't get to watch the final because I was working like all that week. But I remember Deepwood member Scott was watching, and he said that it was like one of the most intense games he's ever seen.
Yeah, so I ended up, like, the first thing I did when I got home was watch the Twitch VODs of the finals, because I wanted to see, one, my own reactions, two, what Twitch chat had been saying at the time. And I wanted to call out Twitch chat for calling me out. There was, it was, like, game 2, and I had played an Elvish Priest turn 1, and then, Quinn had an untapped mana in the coin. And I tap my Elvish Priest and my mana for Magic Stone analysis before I call a stone for turn, and I get twofold chanted. And everyone's like, oh, massive misplay. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, he twofold chanted a fucking ramp spell. Like, we're playing the Bomb Mirror, and I got his coin and a twofold chant on my ramp spell. That's broken. That's crazy. So I was really happy about that, and Twitch chat didn't really pick up on that. They were like, oh, God, he should have called a stone first. He could have played around it. And I'm like, I didn't want to play around it. Like, if he twofold chanted that, I'll take that trade.
I think your first mistake was turning to Twitch chat for intelligent answers, but you know.
The big thing that everybody has been talking about was Quinn not tapping down my red boy. I don't know if you're aware of the scenario, but it was essentially I think I'm at 500 life. Quinn's at 25. I have Charlotte, Red Boy, and Melfi on field. And he has 2 tapped Captain Hooks, a tapped Melfi, a bunch of open mana, no cards in hand, and a Home of the Sages, which he can sack to draw a card.
Right.
So what they want him to do is sack to draw a card and tap down my red boy.
Right.
But my field doesn't kill him, so I go attack with red boy, and he's like, yeah, I'll take that. Why wouldn't I take that? Like, it puts me down to 11. You have 700 damage on board. That's nothing. And then I go attack with... I move to combat again. He says sure, and as I tap my Melfi, you can see the realization of what's happening to him hit his face. And then I attack with Charlotte because he can't tap that down, and then I lightning strike him in the face for game. So we go to game 3.
Oh my god.
And it was just like for a couple of seconds there, he forgot that Lightning Strike existed. But like tapping down Red Boy seemed like a weird line anyway, because it's not like he wins next turn. Like I have the defenses up. Like using your last draw to tap down my guy didn't seem like the proper play in either of our minds. I mean, obviously hindsight's 50-50. But me and him ended up
50-50.
Me and him ended up talking about it at the train station the next morning, and we agreed that if he had done that to tap down the Red Boy, he knew that he checked later that his next card would have been Charlotte's Water Transformation Magic. But because I had Captain Hook as my other card in hand, I would have been back in the game anyway. So it didn't really matter. It would have just turned back into a game, but one that I'm favored in because I still have J Ruler Charlotte. His Charlotte's dead forever.
Yeah. That sounds really intense.
Yeah. I went back to see what my face looked like when I drew the Thunder, and like it was just completely stone-faced. I'm like, oh, thank God, I didn't like look excited or anything.
You have to like maintain the poker face when you're playing high-stakes poker.
I drew the Lightning Strike, and I was like, this card's fucking awful. And then I like did the math, and I'm like, oh, never mind, this card wins me the game.
So as soon as you drew it, you're like, oh man. So he's like, I've got a chance.
First it was like, oh shit, and then it's like, wait, math is it? Oh, I win. As long as he doesn't tap anything down.
All right. Well. That sounds so good, and honestly, that sounds like the most intense thing ever.
Yeah.
And obviously, we know the Lightning Strike, Hook are good cards. Do you see Red Boy having meta relevance going into New Frontiers?
Probably not. And the reason for that is we want Red Boy to be New Frontiers relevant, but even back when me and Ryan were doing the spoiler article, the only thing I could really see him being played in was like Huanglong decks, because like
Right.
they're used to paying 5 colors for a
Yeah.
6 mana creature. Um, but realistically, like I just don't think he makes the cut because thinking back, I can't remember the last time I paid 6 or even 4 mana for a card in New Frontiers. Uh, like three's the limit. Anything past that, that's got to be a good fucking card, man. But
Yeah.
maybe now that Reflect is gone, things will be different because I'll actually like get past 3 stones for most
Yeah,
of the game.
exactly. Yeah, I think
But we'll
I
see.
think
I don't.
like shifting to that's really good. Like shifting reflect out and making like everything like more relevant is going to be like a big deal when it comes to bigger cards and more of a control focused meta.
Yeah,
Because I definitely see that this format, especially with all the Lapis stuff coming into New Frontiers, we're going to see a lot of control. And do
yeah.
you kind of see the same thing?
I'm at the moment. I'm thinking it's gonna be like a Feetsing blowout fest.
Could
I
be, yeah.
haven't found anything that beats that deck. Apparently, randoms online have, but
Randoms
uh,
online, yeah.
yeah, of course, they have found the secret answer that the world champion has not to this Feetsing deck.
Right, exactly.
But I don't know how you deal with a Gwyber with only 2 mana. Like I just don't know how you do that. I can't do it. The
I feel
cards
like you,
just aren't there.
yeah, I feel like you're going to need like, I feel like a lot of the meta, if you want to beat Feetsing and Gwyber, you're going to have to run a lot of removal.
Yeah, and like the problem is that removal is not as efficient as Gwyber is mana
Right.
wise. And throw Titania into the mix and like it's just game over.
Yep. Mainly the Regalia builds, I'd assume.
Yeah, because it's so easy to torrent with that,
Yeah.
and you really need the Ruler's Memoria.
Yeah, you think Rules Moria is going to stay as the top dog of all the stones?
Um, it's a little hard to say. In Wander, well, I mean, Wander is irrelevant now that a Ruler's Memoria is banned. Um, and B, I didn't think Ruler's Memoria was super good anyway since Levitine was banned.
Right.
But in New Frontiers, I think Ruler's Memoria is still definitely top dog because we still any deck can play like 4 Levitine, 4 bow, and a horn, and that's a deck.
Yep.
Um, they're good in everything except for like tree. Uh, Even then they're not awful. Like Levitine's just the free sack is really huge.
Yep. Especially when like people are trying to steal stuff with say like either of the Vals, I guess.
Yeah, like it makes Valentina a bad card. It makes the Shift Prisia not
Yeah.
very good card.
Exactly.
And then like in Feetsing, you can just swing with everything, flip, stack your entire board to it, and you're fine.
Yeah, I like seeing that. So, for the sake of time, I guess at this point, we should probably start moving into your deck because I definitely want to talk this over a little bit because this deck is pretty sick. So you're up in the top right corner. Wave hi to YouTube again. So, of course, the ruler you picked was Charlotte because Charlotte, from most people's, actually no, wasn't I think the spread was like what 37 Faith Sing and like 21 Charlotte or something like
Yeah,
that.
that sounds right.
Yeah. So a lot
Um,
of people expected Feet Sing the same way that you guys did in your testing, but then
yeah,
a lot of the players
Charlotte
did
took
shift.
6 of the top 8 spots.
Pretty sick stuff.
One of the Feasting players that took the other 2 spots sided Charlotte. Zach Tufford was the only person not to in the top 8 to not have Feasting in his deck anywhere, or Charlotte in his deck anywhere, which is what made me really confident going into the top 8 match. Like Zach might be a better player than me, but at this event my deck was a lot better than his, and I think we both knew that going into it.
Right. So going a little further, obviously you've got your 4 dorks, the
Yep.
4 sacred elves, or as you called them before, elvish priests.
Yeah, it's the big thing that really took us by surprise going into top 8 was that none of the 2 non-American players, Eponk and the Italian, did not play Elvish Priest.
Hmm.
But they did both play Riding Hood.
Oh, okay. Which
Yeah.
you did not play. I see.
I did not. Ryan played it in the day 2 event when he won the pay trip out of the losers bracket. He took out the Elvish Priests for Riding Hood, which is something we didn't really get into testing with, which I'll get to later.
All right. And do you think that the 2/3 body is more relevant than the 1/4 body, or less relevant?
It's in Wanderer, I would say 1/4 is the way to go. In New Frontiers, the 2/3 was fine because Elvish Priests, like in Lapis Cluster specifically, Elvish Priest actually got a lot of value just by attacking. Like later in the game, I would just be like, all right, he's got 200 attack, and I've got like 10 mana. Let me just attack with my Elvish Priests.
They become
Uh,
bigger threats. Yeah.
yeah, like against Eduardo, I think I won the game because my Elvish Priest did like 1600 damage over the course of the game.
It's pretty sick.
Yeah,
And then I guess going into the next one drops. Obviously, you played the 4 Tama because you're playing green stuff, and Tama
yeah.
seems really good.
Thomas just a good card.
Now that you
Uh,
don't have to pay for the damage off of it, do you think
yeah,
it's
like
definitely
that
more
lightning.
relevant?
Oh, definitely. I mean, just because the gameplay's so mana tight, like you really can't be affording to like throw away 1 mana on Tom activators. Plus, like Tom activation Lightning Strike was like a big way to deal with Melfies and things like that.
All right, yeah.
There'd even be times where like something would attack and I'd be like, all right, Charlotte's Water Transformation, magic it, block it with my Elvish Priest, and then Tama to kill it off. So like the 200 attack on the Elvish Priest on top of the free Tama really came up a lot.
Yeah, Tommy definitely seems like it's going to be super relevant going forward.
Definitely.
And then obviously got the 4 Melfies. How many times did you torrent Melfi, and did you just mainly use it for the quick casting?
I torrented her a lot actually. One thing that people don't realize is that torrent abilities are like Lancelot, and they go on the chase even if the condition has not been met, and then they check at resolution. So one of the things that we would do a lot is you go summon Christie, and they don't want to twofold chant it because you haven't played a card this turn. There's no reason to, and you go okay. Her ability's on the chase. Target this guy, and they're like, yeah, sure. And then you're like, in response to her ability, flash in Melfi. Now both of them get their torrent activators. Christie will fight your creature, and Christie will also take no damage this turn. Which is how we dealt with opposing Christies and Captain Hooks a lot.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, if so basically it happens that if you chase torrent effects to each other, they both get the effect of the torrent off because they're being played one after the other.
Yes, it's because the torrent effects on resonators check at resolution.
Ah,
So while the ability's on the chase, you play the second card, and then it's like throwing Lancelot up to 1,000 attack while his ability is looking for activation.
oh wow. So quick cast is going to be really relevant going forward with Thietzing, I would assume, just because of that
Yeah,
torrent.
I'm not sure if Melfi makes it into New Frontiers play, but I don't know for sure yet. I think she's a really solid card.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna have to do a little more testing with that, right?
Yeah.
All right, moving forward. All right, so we skip immediately from 2 drops to big drops. I guess going in mana order. What is it? Christie's a 4 drop.
Yep.
All right, so you've already talked a little bit about the fighting thing, and you've talked
Yeah.
about how she interacts with quick cast stuff. Uh, Anything more really to say about her?
Actually, yeah. So the night before the tournament, we were set on 4 Red Boy, 4 Captain Hook, 1 Christie. Because we weren't facing, so we couldn't pump her. We didn't feel she was that good. And then we went into, oh well, we want like a medium drop, like a 3 drop or a 2 drop. And we were looking at Sha Wu Jing, and then we were like, well, Christie comes in on like turn 2 or 3 anyway. We'll just play 4 Christie, and if I have to play her as 1,000, that's not the worst thing in the world. Which is what put us up on more Charlotte's Water Transformation magics.
You're right. So that's pretty cool, though. Did you ever use the wind effect, like the buff effect?
No, because I never. You can only use that if Feetsing is your ruler.
Oh, I totally
Which is
forgot.
why we went down to 1 with Charlotte.
Right.
And why we sided Feetsing against 0 so that we could pump her to be enough to kill him. So I never got to use it, no.
Oh, okay.
But even against Feetsing's decks, like they would play their Christie, they'd target mine, they'd like pump it once, and I'm like, sure, Charlotte's Water Transformation Magic, you're a 4/4. So
A
even
4/4
in like
bear, very
yeah,
important.
so like even in the mirror when we're not supposed to be losing the Christie war, Charlotte's Water Transformation Magic just lets you win it anyway.
Pretty solid. And then obviously onto the another one of the elephants in the room. Talk a little bit about Captain Hook, why don't you?
So Captain Hook, the earlier he comes out, the better, which is why we played the full 4 of. If he comes out on turn 3, it usually ends the game. In the finals against Quinn, I actually lost game 1 because he played 2 of them on like turn 11, and that's like setting me back 4 stones in 1 turn was just huge. So even in the late game, like he's good in the early game as a singleton, and then he's good in the late game as multiples. So he's one of those cards that's just really strong at all stages of the game. And he is game ending. He's the reason that Mikage was not the deck that everybody wanted to play. He took a lot of other things just completely out of the meta. Um, and I mean, obviously, you have to win the hook war. He's what you have to hold your 2-fold chance for. Because if you try to hook first and you get 2-fold chanted, and the next turn they hook you, you just feel like an idiot.
Like
And you
the
probably lose
tempo
the game.
loss is probably just like
Yeah,
the worst.
it's game ending.
All right, and I guess moving on to the last resonator you got there. Uh, Life has many doors, Red Boy. Let's talk
Red
about
Boy,
that.
Red Boy was amazing. Red Boy won me the Mercurius matchup a lot because my opponent would like fully resolve their thing, and he'd put out like Captain Hook, he'd have Mercurius, and then like 2 Ice Dragons, and I'd be like, all right, in untapped Charlotte Water Transformation, your 2 Ice Dragons, then use my 2 Redstones, my green, my blue stone, and my 2 Melfies to produce white and black to drop Red Boy for 1,000 and just wipe the board. Um,
Ugh.
so dropping Red Boy for 1,000 was not only possible, but extremely relevant, given that the other bombs in the set, Christie and Captain Hook, are both 1,000s. And on top of anything outside of that range, you just Charlotte's Water Transformation Magic and untap before you play the Red Boy.
Pretty
So he
sick.
was insane.
That sounds really insane. So, yeah, I actually got a Red Boyd at my locals the other day. We were doing New Frontiers. Somebody was playing just a one of, so he just drops Red Boyd, my board of 8/8s, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good.
It really didn't. So moving into the spells, I guess the first one you have listed on there is the oh my god, Magic Stone
Magic Stone
Analysis. There we
Yeah,
go.
we argued back and forth about whether or not we were going to play 3 or 4, and the conclusion that I had personally come to was if I'm playing Feasting, I'm going to play 3. If I'm playing Charlotte, I'll play 4, because worst case scenarios, I just discard my other copies with Charlotte's effect. And 4 ended up being the way to go because it's very important to see it in the early game. It's what allows you to not get hooked out of the game, as well as hooking a few turns earlier than you would normally be able to.
And I'm assuming the stone coming in unrested is just like
Extremely relevant.
Yeah.
In both of my games against Zach in top 8, he chose for me to go second, and my turn 1 play was just Magic Stone Analysis into a green stone play Elvish Priest Pass, which is the strongest opener the deck has going second.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I'm next turn I'm on 4 stone, like 4 mana effectively, which is too much for turn 2.
So Energize is definitely a big mechanic that you can play around with this deck.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and Energize was big. The only problem that we would run into with it is when we would rip the blue stone turn 1, and then we've got a blue Energize token, and we're like, oh shit. The chances of that happening weren't very high.
Yeah, that's like a 1 in 11 to get screwed on first turn.
Yeah.
That's not the worst. And you can still drop, if you need to rest something if your opponent's going aggro, you still have the Waterstone to do that. There's no real dead opening, technically speaking.
Yeah, no, not really.
Except for the tempo loss, but whatever.
Whatever. It's tempo. That's not important.
Right. Who needs tempo? Moving forward, we got 4 Winds, Whispers from the Winds, Farsight.
Yeah. So one of the things that people talked to us a lot about was the fact that we played 4 Whispers and 0 of the, what is it called? Summons from Memoria. And the biggest thing on that was just that Whispers is a 2-fold chant activator. And sometimes it's insane. Like, sometimes you Whispers into a Christie, and then you just get to play her for 3 mana and fight something, which is crazy good.
Yeah.
And the problem that we had with the Memoria card is that we figured out very early on in testing that we can't shuffle our deck. There's nothing in here that says shuffle your deck, so anything you mulligan is on the bottom forever. Anything you summons from Memoria is on the bottom forever. And I ran into a specific scenario where we were still playing, I think we were playing 3 and 3 on Whispers and Summons, and I saw like a card that I wanted. I think it was like 2-fold chant and then 2 Red Boys. And I was like, I really want this 2-fold chant, but I also really want to play Red Boy at some point in this game, so I guess I have to take Red Boy. And I just didn't want to have to come into those kind of scenarios.
Yeah,
Plus,
a lot of people were talking about something from Memoria. A couple of the comments on Deepwood's top 10 cards from Curse of the Frozen Casket were like, why isn't summoning from Memoria on there? We feel like we were just thinking that it was like the card seems like it's like pay 1 mana, do nothing, and stack the bottom of your deck. Which obviously there are cards that do that at the same time, but it's like, is that really worth it?
Yeah, no. Another problem that we ran into with it is just we found our blue mana to be very precious, and throwing it away at sorcery speed felt really bad because there were turns where like we want to hook, but like we can't play summons and hook in the same turn, and then like next turn we want to leave open our blue mana to threaten Charlotte's Water Transformation Magic, or like even a Charlotte effect, or like I can't play this card and flip Charlotte in the same turn, and it just wasn't worth the sorcery speed blue mana space.
Yeah, but do you think you would have probably played it if it was instant, or do you think?
If it was instant, I think I definitely would have played it because like if I don't have to bear magic that turn, then I can like throw it down in the untap phase, and it's an activator for 2-fold chant at that point, which is huge. One of the problems that the Jund Mikage deck ran into is that you're getting hooked on 3 mana, and they don't have a lot of 1-cost activators for 2-fold chant. So even if you 2-fold chant the hook, if I have a mana open, you're screwed unless you drew like Lightning Strike.
Right.
And then you're just like randomly Lightning Striking my face in order to get off the 2-fold chant, which is not what you want to be doing with your cards.
Yeah, definitely.
So Whispers was definitely the way to go.
I'm interested to see the fact that 2-fold chant was like as relevant as it was. Obviously, it's a 2-mana cancel spell for anything, right?
Yeah. So funny enough, the card is actually really bad. It's only good in the mirror. Like outside of the ramp mirror, the card is really bad. I cited 2 additional copies of it. I only went up to 3 in the mirror. I only went up to 4 against Mars and Mercurius. Because if you can cancel out their big spell, then like you pretty much win the game.
Right.
But the card just felt extremely dead against Mikage. Nikhil was only running one in the main deck because he didn't value the mirror very highly. And it's just like in the mirror, it's decent if you can get an activator, and outside of that, it's just really bad.
Right, especially like if you can't get the activator and you're
Yeah,
facing like a deck that will play like not on curve and just kind
yeah,
of
like
has like the
Mikage. Mikage was the big elephant in the room that like the night before everyone's like, oh, I'm either on Featsing or Mikage. I just don't know yet. And everything Mikage plays is like 2 mana or less. So if you're either like saving open 2 mana for it to do something really early on, which you're not because you're ramping in the early turns, or like later in the game you're activating it and then still just negating a 2 drop.
yeah. So definitely seems like one of the weaker links of the deck. But that being said, if a
It
cancel
was a
like
necessary evil.
yeah, that being said, if a cancel was the worst thing in your deck, I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
you're not having a bad time.
that's true.
Speaking of good cards, I got lightning strikes next to that.
That's the face my card is going on. That's the card my face is going on if I can get it done. That card was really, really good. A lot of people, they wanted to play red for Red Boy, but they didn't value Lightning Strike very highly either. And just the ability to pick off Elvish Priests in the early game or Tama Lightning Strike a Melfi was just really, really good in combination with even Charlotte's Water Transformation Magic. Like, that's a 2 card combo, gets rid of anything, and you don't even feel like you lost the Transformation Magic for that because it has Remnant.
Right, it's pretty
So it
sick.
was more, yeah, so it was like a 2 card combo that only costs you 1 card.
Not bad at all.
Yeah.
And then, of course, after that, Charlotte's Water Transformation Magic. You've talked about this card a lot already,
Yeah,
so
this is like the best card in the deck. Like
yeah.
this card was insane in limited. I don't know if it makes it to New Frontiers. I kind of hope it does. Like when we first looked at this card, we were like, I don't know if it's good or not. I like it. I just don't know if it's good or not, and it turned out to be insane.
I've seen a lot of people talking about Transformation Magic with regard to Artemis, the God's Bow, in
Oh
New
yeah, that's
Frontiers.
that's something that I've been considering, and looking into for New Frontiers.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of like really cool like cheap removal going into New Frontiers,
Yeah,
so we may see some pretty good pretty good decks come out of that. So moving
yeah, I
into the
think
stone deck, we talked a little bit about this before because we mentioned the basic stones from everything else, and I feel like the stone lineup's pretty straightforward. Do you want to talk a
yeah.
little bit about it though?
Yeah, sure. So we played 2 Windstones, 1 Waterstone, and then 4 green blue, 4 green red. And the reason that we did those numbers is because we wanted an 11 card stone deck to reduce the chance of hitting our mono bluestone turn one, as well as just more so that uh, what's it called? We weren't really worried about getting color screwed, because Melfi produces mana of any color.
Right.
Your deck is base green anyway. You only play 2 different water cards and 2 different fire cards in the main. And it also gave us access to 4 Magic Stone analysis, because we wanted to see that card very early in the game. And if we were only playing 2 basic Magic Stones, it'd feel a lot weaker. And then we sided a basic Firestone because there were certain matchups where like Captain Hook just wasn't a good card, like because they're playing mono color or something. But in contrast, Lightning Strike turned out to be a very good card in those matchups. A lot of people actually mained the 2 Windstones, fires. They'd go like 3 Windstones, 1 Firestone, or 2 Windstones, 1 Waterstone, 1 Firestone. But we felt like 11 stones was enough. We didn't want to go so hard that we would miss turn one green mana consistently.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. So the sideboard seems pretty much like you know what you're facing off against. Obviously, you have the twofold chance for more cancels.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I essentially played with a 5 card side deck the entire event.
really?
Um, yeah, so the decks I played against was Mars Mercurius, 4 Charlotte Mirrors, and then Feetsing, and then the top 8 was Feetsing, Charlotte. Um, so the Shackles were for the Mikage matchup, which I never had to play. The Elf Cities, the Feetsing, the Redstone, and the Aria and the Arlo were pretty much all for the 0 matchup, so that we could go into Feetsing, block out the 0, kill it with Charlotte, or Christie, I mean. And they were turned out to be 2 0 players in the entire tournament. So the only things that ever actually came in were Twofold Chant, Arcane Knowledge, and Sealing Wave.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was usually in the mirror. I would side out 1 Captain Hook, 1 Tama, 1 Magic Stone analysis, and throw in 1 Twofold Chant, 1 Sealing Wave, and 1 Arcane Magic. And then in the versions that played Riding Hood, instead of Arcane Magic, I would put in the second Sealing Wave.
Hmm. Uh, Thinking back of what you played now, what would you have changed out of that sideboard?
I would have traded out the probably at least the Aria and one of the elf cities for two Heavenly Gusts.
Ah, okay.
Because we were thinking like, what additions do we really care about? We were like, maybe if they stack up like 3 or 4 Pandora's boxes, then like we're in for a bit of a rough time. But in the finals against Quinn, when he threw down 4 Home of the Sages, I'm like, God, I really wish I had Gusting Skies.
Oh my god. That sounds just super gross.
It was pretty brutal.
All right, well that's yep. Everybody, take a look at it. This is a winning deck list right here. This is how you beat people's faces in. So not really much else to say past that deck. Talked about how the matchups went, and uh, basically, do you have any last thoughts on the whole thing? Any
Um,
say anything
Not
to say
really.
that?
Just shout out to Team Outer World for helping me come up with the deck, specifically Ryan Miles and Nick Blandon. A lot of this was Ryan Miles' idea. He's like our star deck builder, so I definitely want to give him the props that he deserves. And I'll probably have a tournament report out by probably the end of the night. It'll be typed up. It'll probably be on the website tomorrow. Kind of take people through the day, what my thought process was, and all that.
Awesome. We'll link that in the description once it's up. So
Awesome.
go check out Aaron Miles. Obviously, just look at him. It's a winning face right there. So with that said, anything else you want to add in, or do you think that's your
I think
thoughts?
I'm good.
All right. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for agreeing to do this and taking
No
time out
problem,
of
man.
your busy day of Hearthstoning to do this. Uh, all right. So this has been Mike from Deepwood and Aaron Miles, our lovely, lovely champion of the world. And we'll catch you guys later.